So, sensors and alerts inside of SOLIDWORKS. Let me open up that bourbon bottle I promised to crack open here. Just a quick design I felt like working up this morning here. Let me turn off the background. So we just have a bottle of bourbon. You notice we have the cool glass bottle. We have some very advanced geometry on the bottom for optimizing the pour. So that's it's very difficult to figure out where the volume of fluid is going to be when you have advanced geometry like this. So when you're designing a bottle, it would be nice to understand what the actual fluid volume is as you're designing. And I can see the actual fluid volume here listed as a sensor. You see it even gives you a little measuring cup as the symbol for the volume. So how do we go about adding this information to our design? Let's go ahead and build this for you. Very often customers ask me, how would you fill a bottle with fluid? So I'll give you a quick idea of how to do that as well. So I'm going to get rid of this indent feature here. Now delete my sensors. Okay. So here we are with just our bottle, and I'll give you just a quick idea of how that was built, so you can see how I would go about building something like this. I actually started with the cap area of the bottle, just drawing that, and I created one simple loft going from a sketch that had an elliptical shape with an elliptical cut in the front of it, another shape of the same exact size using a derived sketch, so if I change the bottom, it'll change the top. Then I created a freeform feature on the bottom for the actual indentation on the bottom of the bottle. Added some quick fillet radii to make it round off a little. And I gave it the wall thickness of the glass, which is 1/8 of an inch thick. So we have the bottle, but we need to actually fill it with bourbon. That's the most important part. So to do that, I'm just going to pick my top plane, drop in a circle or something. Just something that's bigger than the bottle itself. So I would go ahead and, rather than actually giving it a dimension like this, I wanted to reference the edge of the design, because if I optimize the bottle in any way, I want the bourbon to be on the outside of the bottle here. So I'll just give it some sort of dimensional characteristic here. A helpful thing to do is to actually show the sketch that you used to originally design with by right-clicking in the tree and saying Show. And I'm going to go from the elliptical point here to the distance here. And I'm holding the Shift key down to put that dimension in, so that way I can just dimension to the minimum distance. So I'll say 3 inches should be sufficient. And I'll just do a feature extrude to up to some random distance. I'm just saying 6.6 inches. I don't care exactly where it is, because I'm going to optimize the height based on the volume I want to achieve. The most important thing I can do here is uncheck Merge Result. And I'll say OK. Let me hide my sketches now. I don't need to see those anymore. And here's the bottle volume, and here is the bourbon. I'm going to rename the feature. Geez, I can't spell it. I must have had a couple. Here we are. Bourbon. Yikes. Wow, I've had way too many. Okay, I think I got it for now. So we're in a part file with 2 bodies, essentially, when we unchecked Merge Result. And I rename it here because it makes it a lot easier when you're filling out the next form coming up for using the indent tool, one of the most popular, or one of the most powerful tools inside of SOLIDWORKS. All right, so I'm going to say Control, or I'm going to hit the S key on the keyboard. The letter S pops up the shortcut toolbar, and you notice what becomes available if you're using SOLIDWORKS 2012 is the search commands box as soon as you do that. And I can type in the word indent, and it will bring up the indent tool. By default, it's usually hidden into the menu, so if I hit the pair of glasses here, you'll actually see it pop down and show you where that actual command is. But just simply by hitting enter over here, I can get to it. So the target body is the bourbon, so I'll pick the bourbon right here. You see it fills it out, shows you what you have. The tool body, under remove selections, is going to be the bottle. And you'll actually see the volume on the inside of the bottle right there. So now we've filled it with bourbon. Of course, we could change the appearance of the bourbon, change the color. I'm a little colorblind, so I'm going to pick some odd color. Maybe this is some kind of Klingon bourbon or something. And there we are. So let me just save the part as it is. And we can go ahead and create a design study using sensors. So the sensors toolbar, the folder here at the top of the screen, it's usually hidden. You actually have to turn it on if you want to use it. So I'm going to go to the options inside of SolidWorks, go to the tree display, under Feature Manager, and you'll notice there's a Hide Show Tree Items area here. And one of them is sensors. So I'm going to say show that all the time. It will automatically pop up if you add a sensor in a dialog box somewhere else, but I like to sometimes add sensors straight off the right out of the get-go. So I can right-click that sensor folder now and say add a sensor. There are many different types of sensors, as I mentioned earlier. Simulation sensors, measurement, motion. So I'm going to go to mass properties because I want to go with the volume. And it's seeing the whole volume of the bourbon and the glass. But I can go to my feature tree right over here and select the bourbon, and that shows me that we're at 119 cubic inches. Obviously, you'd have to do some kind of conversion to convert from ounces or liters or what have you. But that's a simple thing you can do in Excel. So let's say I want to, figure out, how I can make this volume 122 or 123. I can right-click on that sensor and say Edit. Again, you'll notice there's an Alert button. So the alert, I can say alert me if this volume becomes greater than 121 cubic inches. Right now it's at 119. So if I go ahead and pick my extrude feature, turn on my Instant 3D toolbar so I can get the dimensions. You'll notice that it's showing me the volume of fluid right here as I'm moving up. And now I'm greater than 121, so it actually went to that olive green ugly color saying that you're at alert right here, and it gives you the warning right in the list. Also, if you hit the rebuild button, it will actually show you that as a rebuild error. Not that it really is a rebuild error, but it's going to give you that alert in the what's wrong box. So there's a number of things that are happening here to make that happen. So there are a number of things I can do to get that exactly right. Let's drink a little bit of our bourbon here. Drag it down here. There's a lot of people on this webcast. So I'm going to go ahead and try to have SolidWorks figure out how high that should be to reach 120 cubic inches. You could change the height of the fluid. You could change the width of the bottle. You could change all sorts of parameters here, just using basic SolidWorks. So here is a design study. So I already ran this one, but I'll show you how to set it up. There's essentially a 3-tab interface here on the design study. You right-click anywhere down on these tabs here, and you can say Create a new design study. And if you have SolidWorks Standard, you have this. So everybody that has SolidWorks has this function. So you can see what I've done here. I want to vary the fluid height between some variables here. And I want my volume to be constrained. And my goal is to actually have the volume be exactly 120 cubic inches. So let me go ahead and create a new design study. I'll add a parameter for the fluid height. Now there's one already here. Let me delete it. There we are. All right, so you give it some kind of name. I'll call it the bourbon. It's going to be a dimension. And all you do is you actually select the dimension. This is where you actually want Instant 3D turned off because it kind of gets in the way of your selection. So I'll hit the, find the height of the bourbon, 3.76, and there it is. There's the model dimension name right in gray here, and I'll hit apply. So that's my first variable, the bourbon height. And I can actually vary it now with discrete values, a range with a step increment, or just any range whatsoever. So, a range with a step I'll try this time, and I'm going to say I don't want it to be lower than 3.5. I don't want it to be higher than 7.5. And then the step increment means, it's going to vary these in quarter-inch increments, let's say. Your constraint is going to be the volume sensor that you've already created. You can even have it go, optimize on a goal. So I'll add a sensor for the goal, just the same thing, the mass property of the bourbon. Not the mass, the volume. 6 pounds of bourbon. That's heavy bourbon. Okay. So the goal is not to minimize the bourbon, of course. The goal is to get it exactly at maybe 120 cubic inches. I'll just make those the same. So what you do, I'm gonna, we need to actually run an optimization on that. So you hit the check mark to run the optimization, and it tells you that there are 17 scenarios it's going to try out. So it's not going to take too long. It's going to go ahead and try to figure out what the height of that volume should be. We're already almost half done. And it lets, you're going to let SolidWorks do the work, and you can go have yourself a little drink while it does it. I'm having a non-alcoholic drink, really, by the way. I'm having a nice Polar Orange Dry right now. Don't worry. Can't wait to get home now. All right. So it ran all these different scenarios, and I can see all the different design scenarios. It actually took 17 results, and it's showing you which one's the most optimal one. The closest one with the available parameters is the one that ended up being 15. And it's coming out to 120.47 cubic inches. That's pretty close. Close enough. So that you can see where it's filling it up to. Now, if you wanted to vary the design of the bottle, you could certainly do that too. So, I mean, there's a ton of different things you can do with this type of study inside of SolidWorks. Just the very basic version of SolidWorks is needed to run these design studies. So think about how you might apply it in your application. So you can also, change some of the settings. If you right-click on the sensors folder, there's a notifications button. And over here on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that there's, when you want it to alert you to these things. If you want it to do it every rebuild or every 5th rebuild, you don't want it to be nagging you all the time, so you can set that. And that's what we did here. So you can just evaluate, or you can optimize like I did here. And that's the bottle that we just designed up this morning, sitting in a kitchen using PhotoView 360. You can also look at design study trends as well. That's something I should have showed you when I had that model up. Let's open up that bottle of bourbon again. In 2012, I can do that very easily because you can pin down any of your previous files like so. But there's our bottle. And I'm going to go ahead and get a design history graph on my second design study that I ran. To get that, you can right-click the results in graphs folder, and I can define a design history graph here. And the x-axis is going to be the scenario, 1 through 17. And the y-axis can either be a design variable, like the volume of the bourbon. So I'll say OK. And it's showing me this one's pretty easy because it's just increasing the amount of bourbon for each of the sets. It was a pretty easy design scenario to run. You can also look at trends as well. If you run it at a lower quality, because it's not giving you the exact results. If you run it in low quality or high quality, there's an option for that here under Design Study Options to do a quick calculation or actually run the full calculation. Finally, you can export a report in Microsoft Word format of your calculation here. So you can preset your simulation results and where it's going to save those. Let's just put that report on my desktop. So just like the full simulation report that you might get if you have SOLIDWORKS Simulation Professional or SOLIDWORKS Premium, you can export these reports for doing your stress analysis, for example. You can also export the same type of report for your design studies. There it is. And all the different scenarios are listed out. That design history graph is in there, and you can put your conclusion. Have a drink. All right. So enough of that.